Hi. This is the very first episode of the Rich Life Realization podcast. And ignore my dog chewing in the background, please. He needs to chew his bone. And this is going to be a space where I just get to talk about whatever the heck I want. And maybe I'll have people on it, maybe not. Maybe it'll just be me by myself, talking to myself. And maybe to you if you're listening to this. And talking about what's come up for me just this week. And hopefully some thoughts, some insights that are powerful for you is really the goal. The goal is transformation. And it's an exploration of transformation for me. I was talking with somebody today, and we were talking about, like, I wanted to be like Flint, where I could spark people's ideas, transformations, dreams coming true, maybe, or maybe just spark contentment and joy, that coming from that authentic place. If I could do that, that is my realization. And the realization, so I've been coming up with this. This is the new idea, is the realization. And the realization, it's not necessarily your purpose. Yes, it is. It's your purpose. It's why you're here. I asked that. I asked why I was here a lot of times, and I didn't hear anything. For a long time, I asked it, and I remember crying after asking it, especially when I was in kind of a tough place earlier this year. I'll tell more about that as things improve. But I asked, why am I here? What is my mission? What is my purpose? And that's the realization. Just asking is the realization. And working on the realization is the realization. Even if it's just a little bit, even if it's just like one thing a day where you're working for 10-15 minutes. If you know what your realization is, or even just like the next steps on your realization, you know it too, you feel it. It's kind of like a game of warmer, colder, where you remember playing warmer, colder when we were kids, where you would go in a direction and they'd say, "Oh, warmer," and you, oh, okay, now I'm on to it. And then you'd say, "Oh, colder," and colder, you'd go over this way. And that's how you find the realization, is you practice, you kind of experiment, and you test things out, even careers, even relationships. You test out those things, and then you feel, and based off of those, really your feeling is coming from your thinking. So it's I wouldn't say that it's your feeling, but the realization. You realize, because it flows when you do it. And the realization is also something that you do that serves the world. So my mom was a former teacher, and she goes on and puts on these like productions for these kids. It's amazing. It's she's when I was a teacher for 5 years, and she would come to my class and put on these like presentations, and it was plays and theatrics, and it would make learning fun for the kids. And it was great as like the teacher. You could just be like, oh yeah, well, here's Miss Life. And so that's her realization. When she does that, she's living that. And I told her that the other day. And there's no shame. Don't feel guilty. You're like, oh, I don't know what my realization is. I don't know what, or even I'm not working. I know what it is, and I'm not working on it. That's okay. And eventually, I think you'll find that there are some things that are going to tell you, it's going to say, hey, you're cold. You're getting colder and colder. And a lot of the times that's why people have those big course corrections, the midlife crisis. It's been getting colder for them. And they say, oh, I have to almost do a 180. You don't have to do 180. You can course correct. When I did my class on inner guidance, I talked a lot about that. Like you have your inner guidance system. That's the warmer, colder. And I think you probably felt it before. And if you're off by 1 degree, even if it's like, oh wow, this is getting warmer here, but if you're off by 1 degree in the beginning, it's not a big deal at all. You're going, but the further along that you get, the farther away that you get from that purpose, the mission, the realization. That's the realization that I've been thinking about. And I think I'm on, maybe, yeah, I think I am. I think I'm on that path now. You're listening to that guidance system, and it's funny, it doesn't tell you all the time. It doesn't tell you all the time. Just like a GPS, it doesn't say keep going straight. You have to wait until you get closer to the turn. and it'll tell you the realization. I'm curious what other people's realizations are. I ask the right, if you ask the right questions, you can start to find it. You can start to feel around with that, and the questions that you can start to ask are like, what do you love doing? How do you want to serve the world? What is your zone of genius? I talk about the zone of genius in the class, and that's like this Venn diagram of all of your your life experiences, the amazing things that you've done. So it's like, for me, it's teaching is over here. And then I was a coach for the last 5 years. I was a weight loss coach. And over here, I loved writing in college. So writing was a huge part of my life. And in the center of all those things is your magic. Vision from Mind Valley talks about that, that zone of genius. I really like that idea. I'm very excited. I'm going to be teaching a class here on creative genius. And I'm letting my creative genius guide me through teaching that class. Creative genius is like, it's powerful. It's that piece within you that, like, kind of like when we were kids, where we had full access to this creative genius. Like we would go to school and just be so joyful and excited to learn and playful and creative, and we had these imaginations that would run wild. Take away their tablets and put kids on a playground and see what happens. They're making up a game, and then they're arguing about the rules of the game during the game that they made up. So we had this creative genius where we felt like, oh, I can do art, and I can draw, and I can write, and then I'm not going to say that we lost it, because it's there. It's always within us. We covered it up. We masked it. At least I did. I tried to fit in and be cool. And I was terrible at it. I was so not cool. I was so not cool in middle school, elementary, or high school. I think like I remember thinking, oh, I have to not smile and be very stoic and yes, and be like that because you see that on the advertisements, like all of the models. Yes. I remember that. I remember actually thinking that. And we were trying to fit in. And it it didn't work for me, at least. And remember, I was creating this mask, this persona of somebody who's fitting in and somebody who is with the crowd and cool. And and I was rejected. That mask was rejected. And so the thinking, at least for me, and I suspect it's for other people too, was that, wow, if they reject the mask that I'm putting on, my God, I could never take it off because they would reject who I am authentically. And I couldn't handle that. We were so just like in that vulnerable, hormonal kid state. And I think in a lot of ways we never grew out of that. Maybe some people did, and maybe some people were authentic the entire time. I I I think those people are very rare, and we still we're still doing that in a lot of ways. I think I probably still do that in a lot of ways where I'm masking. I know, just like even while I was at work, I was the always in a good mood. Like, hey, and yeah, I could maintain that. I could do that while I was at work. And I'd come home and there wouldn't be any of that left for the people that I really cared about. This is me taking off the mask right now. It's close to dinner time, so my dogs are gonna be annoying. And and in a lot of ways, we've covered up that creative genius, that spark within us. And I know there's a lot of people who, when they were kids, they were artists. And as they grew up, they believed the stories that other people told them that they couldn't be artists or they weren't very good at art and therefore couldn't be artists. But I think all of us can be artists. It takes it takes a putting down of those concepts and ideas. It takes a little bit of letting go of some of the judgments and the fear of failure because to make good art, you have to make bad art. And maybe there's not good and bad, but we put those value judgments on it. Hmm. I think we're all artists in our own way, and that's part of that artistry is part of the realization. I want to help more people be artists. Right now, my art is I love to make these. I haven't though. Huh. I'm like, oh, I'm so good at art, and I'm not making this. And my other art has been coaching. I I think that's an art. You can let me know if you don't think it's an art, but for me, it's an art. It's it's so powerful. It was something that I fell in love with. Like I fell in love with it because of this job, the weight loss coaching job that I had. And I just loved motivation, even as a teacher. Like I was interested in motivation and inspiring students. And I was always learning, trying to learn new things about that. And then I got to do it as a job. It was focused on weight loss. And decided I need to do this. I subscribed to it was like Mind Valley, and then they had this coaching program, and I'm like, oh my gosh, it was a life coaching program, and I said, yeah, I'm doing this. It was about 4 months. It was so valuable, and I met a couple amazing people. I met Sherry and Holly from there, and hmm, I was using that in my job, the coaching practice, and now I have 3 coaches. I have a business coach, a somatic coach, and a life coach. And it's something I'm really fallen in love with, and it's really impacted my life in a lot of positive ways. And that's kind of the art that I want to share with other people, and just as many people as I can. And I'm teaching classes again. It's so good to teach again. I I love teaching, and it's the weirdest thing because I'm running into a lot of my former students, and oh my gosh, like they're just they're growing up and studying and going through college, and I had a lot of judgments about my teaching them at the time, a lot of fears. and they seem like they're doing pretty great. They're they're getting jobs and working in the world, and it's bizarre. It brings me back to some moments in teaching that I've loved the, the theatrics, the expression. That's what I fell in love with in college, is expression. It was that. Okay, so I I failed out of an entire years of college. I barely graduated high school. Like the only reason that I graduated high school is because I went in and talked to the gym teacher and talked them into giving me a D instead of an F because I didn't dress out. I didn't wear the gym clothes. That's the only reason I graduated. And it wasn't until I took a speech class in college. In the speech class, it was kind of cool because he said you can talk about whatever you want. And I remember talking about my favorite teacher, Mary. I think I did one on sharks. Well, that's my wife's favorite animal. Maybe she did that one. Maybe I'm like I think I'm trying to take it from her. I think she did that one. And I fell in love with that creative expression. And I did the writing program. I loved writing. I was very like, oh yes, I'm reading. I would just like read. It didn't matter if I liked it. It mattered that, oh, it was a classic, and therefore it's so good and so heady, and oh yes. Uh, Loved poetry. One of my favorite poetry teachers inspired me to become a teacher. I wanted to be a college professor at first. Um, and I asked him. I went into a master's program after that, and I asked him, uh, "Will I be able to get into like a college program after this?" He said, "Hey, they'll know you can teach." And I was placed in middle school. I was the only one that was placed in middle school in my teacher training, and then I could only get jobs in middle school. And I think that it was I had to do it for a reason. Like, not that it was punishment, but not that it was punishment, but I had to go back because middle school was so hard. I wore that mask, and I was bullied, and I bullied. Nobody is like, oh yes, middle school was best dang time of my life. Maybe you were like that, but yeah. Hmm. Connected to that, is the idea of like worthiness. And there's an idea that because we think that we're not worthy in a lot of ways. And I had to tell myself I was writing and doing all of these like powerful affirmations where, you know, I am worthy of love. I am worthy. Telling myself that I am worthy so that I believe it. And we are worthy inherently. A baby has no concept of being worthy or not. It cries when it's hungry. It knows that it's worthy of love, and it expects it. My wife works with a lot of kids who've been abused, and they're worthy too. They have an inherent worthiness inside of them that's untouched. It's a worthiness that comes from the spark of life within them, and me, and you. I, in a lot of ways, in a lot of ways, I felt like I had to live up to that. Like that that spark, that electricity within us, the inner intelligence that gives us life, that heals our wounds. And I had to do something amazing to be worthy of it. And I felt like I wasn't. I wasn't doing enough. But I think just living is being worthy of that. That you don't have to do anything. You don't have to do anything to be worthy of the life within you. It's maybe it's a gift. It is a gift. And it's so freely given. It's so freely given. And so when we let go of a lot of the other beliefs and patterns, and you take your foot off the gas, that's what you'll see, that's what you'll find. You don't have to go far. It never leaves you. You leave it sometimes. Some people leave it for their entire lives. That makes me really sad. I think, I don't know this for sure, but I think they find it in the end. That they return to it. Silence and space. Not quite silent. I don't know if you can hear my dog barely whining in the background. So not quite silent. We can quiet down, and we return to that wholeness, that love. It's always there when we quiet down. And a lot of people think that they have to fight to be quiet. It's like the people who meditate and say, "No, I can't meditate." Kind of like the kids, the people who say, "I can't do art." Those people, they 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 don't think they can meditate because their brain goes here and goes here, and the meditation is it's a practice, and it's something that some people leave after they get up. Yes, it changes your brain, and there's so many wonderful ways of meditating. And part of the realization is to live a meditative life, because that inner spark will come from that, the guidance when we hear, when we listen to those turns, it will come from that. That's part of the realization. I'm just going to talk about whatever comes into my head. That's that creative power. It's incredible. It's there's a difference between your thoughts. I was talking with somebody today about inspired thinking versus our normal everyday thinking. And our normal everyday thinking is usually a triggered thinking. It's like comes from our environments. It comes from the drive on the way to work. When we go on vacation, we can sometimes feel a little bit more free. And that's because we're not getting those triggers every single time. Well, we need to see thought for what it really is. And that it's just in our heads. But it's our reality, but it's also not real. I was trying to explain this to my wife and her friend, and that's the hard thing. It's explaining that understanding. You have to use metaphors. You point to it. You dance around it. Because it's there. We have to see it for ourselves. And so the thinking, it's both created by us, like it's automatic. If we're not paying attention, it'll happen. We can also consciously think thoughts, so it's kind of like our breath in a lot of ways. Like when you can take a deep breath in, but when you're not paying attention, it just kind of goes back to its normal rhythm. That's kind of like what thinking is. But just like your breath, you don't have to control it. You bless you. The dog is sneezing. And he's very upset that I haven't bless you, my goodness. It's thinking is it's what we create. It's like we can manipulate it. We can in a lot of ways change our thinking. That's not to say that you have to be the thought police, because you can't. People have tried to meditate. You drive yourself crazy if you try to get rid of thoughts. That just it almost makes them stronger. because you're giving life to them, and instead seeing thoughts as almost like clouds that pass by. And oh, look at that one. That one's kind of interesting, and that one looks a little stormy. They're temporary. And sometimes it doesn't feel that way though, because we can grab onto them. We can trigger them again and again and have those same thoughts. But they are temporary. And when we start to see thoughts for what they really are and let go of trying to control them and let go of being on the waves of them, hitting us like waves in the ocean, then we can see that they're just thoughts. They by themselves, they don't do anything. They can't hurt anyone. Yeah, you can have some really incredibly challenging thoughts, and I have in my life. I dealt with suicidal thoughts multiple periods of my life. Even just more recently with some of the challenges that I had, the health challenges. I didn't want to die, but I wanted it to stop. But by themselves, they're just thoughts. And if we see them that way, they'll start to lose their power, and they'll start to quiet down. And it makes room for that inspired thought, that inner creative genius, that worthiness, the spark of life that everyone is blessed with. I think that's it for today. Thank you for being with me in this. And may your life be richer this next week. Thank you. Thank you.